Okay, so this is the entire P-knuckle assembly of the Sensah rear derailleur disassembled. Here you can see the clutch mechanism. There are two plates, not dissimilar to how the DT Swiss hubs operate, and there is a band that clutches this part, which you regulate with the screw, which you screw from this direction here, which sets the tension. And here is the reason why this derailleur has that little bit of activation angle of the clutch, because if these plates are not synchronized with each other in the direction of the chain pulling the cage, they have to jump into position, and that causes the derailleur to rotate a little bit. I am going to reassemble this with as little grease as possible, because I suspect that the excessive amount of grease that this derailleur shipped with caused the entire issue with this massive activation angle. So let's reassemble this thing. I'm going to guide you through the entire process, or describe the entire process. So this is the cage. It is very light. This is the centering sleeve, which goes into here. It is identical to what happens on Shimano derailleurs. This is a massive spring that's responsible for return. There is a little sleeve here which centers this in the P-knuckle assembly. So this is our return spring assembly. There is a hole here which I need to aim the spring to fit, and it's, regardless of which derailleur you're doing, it's always going to be annoying. Get lost. Here you are. Okay, I'm in there. Sleeve. Obviously, if you're a normal person, you're never going to be doing this, because after all, most people don't disassemble their rear derailleurs. Okay, there you go. So this is now tensioned, and I need to pull it together, although I suspect it's going to happen on its own once I start assembling the clutch. Alright, after a little bit of struggling, I've got the spring assembly together. It's always an annoying part of a rear derailleur assembly, especially if you can't take away this pin here, because you need to really precisely manage to both hold the spring tensioned here and get the spin through the little step, the lip that holds the cage from overextending. So let's continue on our task at hand. Little spacer here, a spring. Do I have to? Yes, I do. I have to put this return plate first. This is the bolt that holds this together. So let's bolt this together, and from this point onward, this is spring loaded, and it simply can't fall apart anymore. So now it's the time to assemble the other part. Let's put this seal here. And now let's assemble the clutch. Here you have the entire assembly. There's a little centering sleeve here. The band that holds everything together, or even not really anything together, it just holds the clutch. This part rotates within this band, which in the end causes friction of the clutch, and in the end causes the clutch to actually work. So now if you put this here and rotate it, we should hear some clicking, but we don't because I haven't put any pressure here. Now, a funny story. My curiosity really killed this particular felon, because this is not an original screw. The original was M4, this one is M5, but I tried to screw the original bolt too hard to get as much tension on the clutch as possible, and I stripped the threads. Obviously that's an operator error, so you shouldn't be doing this, and I had to thread this to a bigger size and use a bigger bolt to get my clutch back. And why isn't this working again? Let's investigate. Okay, I added a little longer screw, and now you can see that this is ungreased and the internal clutch is now clicking, and with it the amount of loose slop in the cage appears to be much lesser. Okay, so let's assemble this fully, but first I'm going to add a little bit of oil here, because I guess that it was over greased from the factory. Oh, here you go. It was over greased from the factory, but some sort of a lubrication needs to be there. I presuppose that doesn't need to be true, but it is wise to assume that if someone sells you something with lubrication, that something probably should be lubricated. Okay, seal is on, and of course, once I already told you that my curiosity killed this cat, and it killed heads on the original bolts that hold everything together, because they are just M5, M2 Allen bolts, and those things aren't really meant to be used more than once, so I'm replacing the bolts because I don't want trouble in the future. But there you go, 1, 2, 3. Let's tension this somewhat. So it doesn't disassemble itself on its own. And there you go. Now we should hear clicking once I move the cage. So we're good here. Okay, so I'm going to put it on a bike now.